iHeart, get ready. Fantasy football is here. Welcome to the Scout Fantasy Show. ScoutFantasy.com is home to the Fantasy Football World Championships and the best players in the world. Real money winners giving their secrets to help you win. Now exclusively on iHeart. This is the Scout Fantasy Show with your host, the one, the only, Dr. Roto.
Dr. Roto. Get out the insurance cards. Get out the copay. The office, it's open, my friends. Oh man, week 15, close to being done. One more game, and we'll cover that game a little bit later. It's the Carolina Panthers against the Washington Redskins, and I promise we'll discuss that because that game has huge fantasy implications for myself and many of you, so we'll certainly highlight that one. But let's take a look at what happened in week 15. So I want to start with a story, and I think most people can relate to this story. There's a couple of stories. I'm going to give you two stories today. The first story is this. I'm in a league, a SiriusXM Dynasty League, and going into the playoffs, I was a number one seed with a 12-1 record and the most points by a couple of hundred. I don't think I had scored. It's an IDP league, and I don't think I had scored less than 250 points all season long. In fact, I know I haven't. But heading into tonight's game, I'm down by like 100. And I would say the chances I have to win are 5% or less. Really, that bad. What does that say? It says that the best team doesn't always win a fantasy championship. And right now, many of you may be very upset. You may be sitting there saying, hey, I was the best team. I should have won. I can't believe I lost to this guy's team. His team sucks. I'm agreeing with you. I feel for you. I get it. The best fantasy team doesn't always win. Now, that being said, I don't feel that way in baseball. In fantasy baseball, the best team wins. It's true. Best team wins. Maybe it's a team that gets hot at the end. I'll give you that. But for the most part, 90% of the time, the best team wins. But I don't know whether the best team wins in fantasy football 90% of the time. I'd be willing to say it's under 50%. How about that? I'd be willing to say that. Because this game is so difficult. Not only do you have to play well for 13 weeks, right? That's tough enough. But when you get there, when you get into the fantasy playoffs, you have to be good for 3 more weeks. You can't let up in week 14. You can't let up in week 15. You can't give up in week 16. You can't. Because if you do, you'll lose. And then the other team will have a guy like Devonta Freeman or the Atlanta Falcons defense last week or Le'Veon Bell, and they'll beat you. Now look, I'm in the DFS crossover league. I was the number 2 seed going into the playoffs. I'm probably going to lose to Tommy G. Probably going to lose. I think I'm ahead by a point or two, if that. Why? Aaron Rodgers stunk. Aaron Rodgers is one of my top picks. He helped me get to be the number 2 seed and have a bye week. I get there, and Aaron Rodgers can't throw a touchdown. And Devontae Adams can't catch. Is that my fault? Did I do everything right? Well, I did as best I could. My number 1 draft pick was done. Keenan Allen Roto, done. I patched it together all season long. Played without Tyler Eifert for 10 weeks. And you get to the game and Aaron Rodgers, does nothing. There's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can do about that. So that's story number 1. Here's story number 2. Now, you're really going to love this story. This is a crazy one. I told this one last night, but I'll give some more detail to it. So a couple of years ago, I'm in Vegas, right, for the Fantasy Football World Championships, and I meet this woman named Amy. And, we're talking, and Amy, basically, I help her with her team last year. And we end up winning her league last year, so we come back to defend her title this year. So basically, Amy knows a lot about football. I got to give her a lot of credit. She knows a lot about football. She's awesome. And, she asks me who we should pick. We do a draft strategy together for the most part. And during the season, I handle most of the free agent moves, and we work on the lineup. Okay? So this week, she's got tough matchups. But she's got a great team. She's got Tom Brady. She got Lev Bell because her league, nobody wanted to take a chance on those guys who were out for a few weeks. We did. She's got LaShawn McCoy, blah, blah, blah. So it was a tight match against the number one seed in her league. And our receivers were Sammy Watkins, who did nothing. I can't remember the other guy at this point. And then we had to choose, Devontae Adams, who couldn't do anything. And then I had Brandon Cooks in the lineup. Brandon Cooks Roto in the lineup. But we also had J.J. Nelson on the bench. So it's about 3 o'clock yesterday, and she texts me, and she says, I'm not so sure about Cooks. Do you want to play Nelson? I said, they're both good. I mean, I had Cooks in from the beginning, but I like Nelson this week. She goes, well, what do you think? I said, look, put in Nelson for the upside if you want. Right? I can't remember the exact thing, but basically at 4:10, I don't offer to do it. I'm lazy. I'm watching the games. I'm not getting up. I figure if she wants to do it badly enough, she'll change it. Sure enough, at 4:10, I get a text. I never made the change. I kept Cooks in. I'm so pissed. I don't know, about 4:40, Brandon Cooks gets his first touchdown. At about 5:30, Brandon Cooks gets his next touchdown. At this point, Amy's team is in the finals. Thank you, Brandon Cooks. Sometimes it goes to show a little luck goes a long way. Look, was it that J.J. Nelson was bad? Absolutely not. J.J. Nelson wasn't bad. He was pretty good. 5 for 38 and a touchdown. But that's not 7 for 186 and 2 touchdowns. Let me tell you that right now. It's not. So sometimes it pays to be lucky. What does that show you? Not the best team doesn't always win, right? The best team does not always win a fantasy championship, and sometimes you need a little luck. Here's another thing that I want, another takeaway. So in the online championship sponsored by Scout Fantasy, we basically have it this way. So the top 4 scoring teams, well, the best record, the second best record, the number 1 scoring team, and the second best scoring team make the playoffs for a 3-week battle. And the winner of who has the most points at the end of the 3 weeks gets the grand prize in the league. I think it's $1,500 or a free entry next year into the main event. Would you believe that my team is 6-7? That's right, my team is 6-7. But I'm number 27 overall with Kirk Cousins and Greg Olsen going tonight. What does it show you? My team scored a lot of points. My team has scored a lot of points. Record is dependent on luck and matchups, but scoring tells you the mark of a great team. There's a shot, a legitimate shot after tonight with Cousins and Olsen that I could be top 10 going into next week. Could you imagine that I'm playing for the $50K first prize next week with a team that didn't even go over 500? That's pretty amazing. And that's why I absolutely love what we do at Scout Fantasy. I think it's tremendous because we try to make it so that the best teams are competing, right? Because you have to agree that I am one of the best teams because of the points. I may have lost games. What if I lost the game 183 to 181? Was I not a good team? I probably was better than the other teams I played in the league except for the one I played. That's just bad luck. Do you understand? That's just bad luck. And that's why when you think about what leagues to play in next year, I encourage you from the bottom of my heart to play in Scout Fantasy's leagues. Because we give opportunity for teams with the best record and teams with the most points. If you're in a league right now, a home league, and it's just based on record who gets in the playoffs, I don't know if I like that league. I'll tell you this, I wouldn't play in that league. I wouldn't. Here's another league I wouldn't play in. I wouldn't play in any league that goes through week 17. Now, one of my good friends, Kick, and you can find Kickman on Scout Fantasy, and he does a great job with NHL. But Kick goes, Doc, I love playing week 17. I go, Kick, you're crazy. He goes, but it's another week of football. I get that. I get that it's another week of football. But Do I want to base my championship on week 17? When half the teams aren't playing because they've either made the playoffs or they haven't made the playoffs, or coaches want to see new guys out there? I don't want to risk that. So I encourage you to check the rules. Check the rules of your league. Now, something else I want to discuss in today's podcast. I think it was interesting that certain quarterbacks didn't do enough. Andrew Luck actually did a pretty decent job. I got to give him credit. 250 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Minnesota Vikings. It's pretty good. But Tom Brady had 188 yards and no touchdowns. I thought it would have been better. But here you are. If you lost this week because you had Tom Brady, you did nothing wrong. You just were unlucky. If you lost this week because you had Aaron Rodgers who put up 252 yards and no touchdowns, and you lost, you were unlucky. You didn't do anything wrong. How about a story I just heard from my friend? A guy had Melvin Gordon, but he had to bench him because he was out, and he played Ty Montgomery. And now this guy's going into his finals next week. Do you think that guy knew what he was doing when he played Ty Montgomery? Of course he didn't. He had no idea what he was doing. He got lucky. Okay? So sometimes you can do nothing wrong, and still lose. It's fantasy football. Did you know that Devontae Adams was going to go 2 for 25 yesterday? I'm sure if you did, you wouldn't have played him. I feel pretty confident in that, knowing that, right? Or what if? Did you bench DeAndre Hopkins because Brock Osweiler has been a train wreck all year long? And then all of a sudden, did you know Tom Savage was going to come in? I'm sure you didn't. Or how about were you like me and did you play Adrian Peterson because you were so desperate for a second running back and you're like, well, hey, if he's playing, let me give it a shot. Okay? Strange things happen in the fantasy playoffs and we can't always control them. So if you're sitting there now and you made it, congratulations. I am really, really happy for you. And I'm going to do whatever I can next week to help you win a fantasy championship. I am. I promise you that. I'm taking an oath right now. I, Dr. Roto, will do everything I can to help you win a fantasy football championship next week. So help me God. All right? But sometimes there are things that are out of our control. All we can do is put ourselves in the best position to win. And never confuse the results with the decision. We talk about that all the time. I love that line from my friend Tony Sincata. Tony always said that when we worked together on the radio. Was the decision right to play Sammy Watkins Roto yesterday? Yes. Cleveland is terrible. Cleveland lets all guys, everybody throws for 2 touchdowns against Cleveland. Not Tyrod Taylor and not Sammy Watkins. He went 1 for 10. So he did something right. He did everything right by playing him. He just didn't play. But hey, if you played Duke Johnson, congratulations. Duke Johnson went 5 for 62 receiving wise and 5 for 31 rushing wise, and he finally gave you 14 points. I was calling him Puke Johnson. So once again, don't confuse the results with the decision. All right, let's take a look at tonight's game. Carolina against Washington. First of all, for Carolina, I've got to think that Cam Newton is going to play better. But I'm worried about Josh Norman. I think Josh Norman has circled this game on his calendar all year long. I think he makes a pick tonight, maybe 2. So I think Cam is going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat tonight to do anything, and he's struggled all year long. But I think that Josh Norman is going to do something great tonight. You just watch and see. That said, I like Greg Olsen. I think he played better last week. Kelvin Benjamin has struggled, and I think Josh Norman is going to be draped all over Benjamin. I like Ted Ginn. I think Ted Ginn's a really good play tonight. And I think Olsen's a really good play tonight. Those are the guys I'm in on. I am absolutely not in on Kelvin Benjamin. Jonathan Stewart, I will never be in on Jonathan Stewart, ever. I promise you that. It's just a guy that I never have on my team. For Washington, man, this is a Kirk Cousins night if I've ever seen one. I mean, I thought my best running back plays of the week were LaShawn McCoy and Bilal Powell, and my best quarterback play of the week was Kirk Cousins, and I really like him tonight. I think he goes 300 yards with 3 touchdowns. I do. I really do. I don't think Carolina's pass defense can stop this guy at all. The only thing that can help Carolina is their pass rush. Kawan Short, Coney Ely, Mario Addison. Can they get to Kirk Cousins and force him to make mistakes? If they can, that will be the only chance they have. But Jordan Reed should have a good night tonight. I see him getting a touchdown. I see Deshaun Jackson. Remember, Deshaun Jackson is playing for a contract. I love Lucky Pierre Garçon tonight. Think he has a good matchup. I want to know who Worley's covering, because Worley's pretty good. All right, Worley's a pretty good player. So, I just want you to watch that one closely. When we look at Carolina's secondary, Bradbury and Worley are okay. So, I really like Jamison Crowder tonight. I just think the Redskins, this is a must-win game for the Redskins if they want any chance of making it to the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at our 3 playoff challenges for Scout Fantasy. You go to playscoutfantasy.com. It's simple, playscoutfantasy.com. I'm going to tell you about all 3 right now. The first one is the Beat Dr. Roto and Adam Roto's Playoff Challenge. It is free to enter. All right, it's free to enter. And what you're going to do is, it's very simple. You pick your fantasy team. The same team is the same throughout the playoffs. No waivers, no changes, no salary cap. No more than 1 player per team. It's free. If you win the whole thing, you get a free entry into the Scout Fantasy Online Championship valued at $299. If you beat us, if you beat me and Adam Ronis, you get a free month of premium access to Scout Fantasy. Sounds easy, right? It's not that easy. You know who won this 2 years ago? Dr. Roto. Dr. Roto. All right, now we have Maui Madness. I'm going to call this Maui Wowie. Because for $25, you can win a trip to Florida, Hawaii in our playoff Maui Madness. Okay? A week-long trip to a 5-star resort. Plus, airfare for 4. How cool is that? The prize package is worth about $10,000. Second, third, and fourth place all get an online championship entry. All right, and then we're giving up to 50 places. So it's a simple pick'em contest, 8-man lineup. No more than 3 players from the same team. Your team stays the same for the entire playoffs. Okay, no waivers, no roster moves. And then finally, the granddaddy of them all, Scouts Playoff Draft World Championship. $199 to enter. 6-team leagues, 14-man rosters. One of the 6 teams gets $500. So you have a 1 in 6 chance to make 2.5 times your money. That's pretty good, right? The drafts take about 45 minutes. It's that quick. And we play it just like we do during Scout Fantasy, right? 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, a kicker, and a defense. It's great. I love this. I love playing playoff fantasy football. I really do. I really do. It just makes the playoffs fun, right? And it's more fantasy. And more fantasy equals more fun. Okay? Speaking of fantasy, I want you guys to check out scoutfantasy.com. Enter the promo code ROTO. That's ROTO. You pay for 1 month. We'll get you 2 more for free. And I promise you, tomorrow I will go through the box scores for this week. But today I want to give you these stories because I think a lot of people are down today. A lot of people are down about what's happened. But don't be. Don't be. We've all been there before, and we will get you back to the championship again. Hopefully, and one of the things is why I like to play in multiple leagues. Gives you multiple chances to win that elusive fantasy championship. But right now it's time to put away the insurance cards, put away the copay, The office is closed, my friends. Whoever has guys in tonight's game, I wish you luck. If you're rooting for Dr. Roto, I want you to take a close look at Kirk Cousins and Greg Olsen. Every time they do well, you know who'll be screaming down in Southwest Florida. That's right, me. I'm just saying. All right, guys, I wish you all a great day. We'll talk tomorrow. We'll break down the box scores. Be well and take care.
Thanks for listening to the Scout Fantasy Show. There's never been a better time to join the Scout Army. Visit scoutfantasy.com. Use the promo ROTO for 2 months free. And don't forget, fantasy players, please thumbs up the podcast on the iHeart app. See you next time. Go Scouts!